has asked us to talk to the congregation a little bit about marriage. Well, I don't know. I guess we have some foundation. Come God willing, this fall, Mary and I will be celebrating our 50th anniversary. So we do have some pretty good knowledge.
And how do you make it to 50 years?
Well, there's a lot of trials. There's a lot of hurdles, but you pray, you have God in your life, and He's with us. We just work at it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
For sure.
It's worth it in the end.
You know, I've always thought of it this way. I don't think when we got married back in 1973, you know, there was this feeling of love for each other or affection for each other. But that love grows. It's a lot stronger now. We maybe don't show our affection. We've never done that publicly. But our love for each other probably is stronger now than it's ever been in our lives. Reverend Schultz, who's the minister from Little Rock that married us, we met with him a few times, and he said, I have one piece of advice, and that's to never go to bed mad at each other. So I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but if you keep that philosophy and try and talk things out and to air it out before you go to bed, then it won't fester. And when you have ill feelings, the longer it festers, the worse it gets. So I think that's a great start for a young couple. I think if they can live to that philosophy, it's a great start.
Yeah, sit down and talk it through and talk it out.
Read a sentence or less for couples getting married. What would you say? Putting you on the spot here.
That's fine. What do you think, Nick?
Keep an open mind.
I like that.
Loving heart.
Yeah, it's really good.
Back each other up.
Back each other up. I love that. I really love that.
Because there's times.
Yeah, you're a team, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And have God in your life.
And I think that's really important. I was going to mention that. I think we mentioned earlier, but I think it's very important to bring Jesus into your family. I think it's really easy to pray for help and to pray for guidance, and through marriage, through illness, through whatever. And I think it's a foundation that has to be set.
So when Travis and I took the leap into ministry and decided to leave this church, this awesome church, there was a couple of things that came up in discussion. One of them being that I didn't want to change who I was as a person. I don't fit the mold of a pastor's wife, and I didn't want to change who I was, and I didn't want to pretend like I was someone that I wasn't. And the other thing that I brought up was that I didn't want to play church. I wanted to bring up real issues and talk about them openly, and talk about our own struggles, even though with that sometimes comes judgment. But I knew that in doing that, we had the opportunity to help change people's lives and help them walk their own journey. So marriage for Travis and I was hard from the start. We had the cards stacked against us. Not only did he grow up not really going to church, not really any background of faith, he told me he had his whole life to go to church. As hard as I tried, he continued to resist my wanting to go to church. We also lived together for about a year and a half prior to getting married, so we never really had a honeymoon phase of marriage. It was just like any other day for us after we got married. But then when it came time to actually finding a pastor, we went to the church that I grew up in, the church that we had gone to, and told him we wanted to get married there, but that, we did live together. His answer was a no, flat no. He didn't even have to think about it. We offered to move apart, live apart for a while. We told him our reasoning was financial, and the answer was no. He wasn't even going to talk about it. He didn't want to do counseling for us. The answer was no. So thank goodness we did find someone who agreed to marry us. And I'm so thankful that I had that faith background growing up, because otherwise I truly don't think we would ever go back to church. We definitely would, there's no way we would have ever stepped foot in church again. Put a terrible taste in our mouth. So then we start having kids, because it's a good idea to have kids when your situation is already not great. Working opposite schedules, two completely different ways of parenting, no communication. God was definitely not the center of our marriage. Our friends were not good friends. If I struggled, it would be more of a bashing session of the spouse. It wouldn't be a, let me help you walk through this journey sort of situation. Nobody wanted to be real and honest. Everyone wanted to put on this face. In fact, I was the queen of that. So we would be arguing in the car, full on fighting. And the minute that we would get to the event or wherever we were going, it was like I could flip a switch and people thought we were so great, that things were so awesome. And it like makes me sick to think that I lived so many years of our marriage like that. In 2017, we were coming home from Christmas and arguing over the same thing that we argued over almost daily, weekly for sure. And I looked at Travis and I said, mark my word, if this does not change, we will be divorced. And that was the first time that word came out of my mouth, something I said I would never say in my marriage. And the rest of the ride home was silent. And then in a week, we welcomed our third child, Oakland. And I know we bring her up in our story a lot, but she completely changed our life. When she was fighting for her life, my husband prayed over her, and he prayed over me, and I had never seen anything close to that from him. I saw him in a completely different light that day. And after she passed, I knew that there was no one in this world who understood the pain that I was going through like he did. There was no one who knew me better. There was no one who could be the support that I truly needed. And he was my rock. And he was everything that I needed in the hardest time of my life. And things just didn't get better. The years were still hard and we did struggle, but they were a lot better than what they were prior to her passing. And I can honestly say that the last 3 years of our marriage have been the most fun and enjoyable years of my life. I love that man so much. He's my best friend. And I'm so proud of where he's come, and I'm so proud of us and our marriage, and we have to work on it every single day. It is not easy. But what changed everything for us is that we put each other first. And we put God at the center of it all. And we started working on each other instead of pointing out the flaws of the other one. And we just like to have fun. He's really annoying sometimes, but we just like to have a good time. And we learned to just be light about situations and to just talk them through. And I always dreamed of having a husband that I could call my best friend, and I truly have that. And I'm just really proud of us.
I was getting a little hot, sorry. Well, thank you to... Thank you to our... This is her fault. In all seriousness, she brought it up this morning, and I was like, no. And then on the inside, I was like, that is a wonderful idea. I've had this shirt for years. I've ran with it before. It's been washed. But she hates it every time, and I wasn't even on my mind until you said, oh, I thought you were going to wear that shirt. And I was like, that is a wonderful idea. I am going to wear that. I kept it on the inside. I honored my commitment to her yesterday when she made that video to not watch that. So that was the first time I had seen that. Who knows, maybe that's why I was feeling so anxious earlier, but I was like, what was she going to talk about? But thank you so much to our couples, Eldon and Mary, and, me, Jessica, for being vulnerable. There's so much power when we do that. And we're going to talk more about that, but first let's get into some scripture this morning. First, I would just like to be able to look at you, and you can see the other people in here. Even if your spouse isn't with you right now, if you're married, engaged, planning to get married, would you stand up just for a second so we can all look at you? If you're married, I know nobody likes this, but we're going to do it just today. Your spouse does not have to be with you. All right. Just take a good look at everybody in this room. We're all in this together. This is the majority of us. I should include, if you were married and you're a widow now, would you stand too? Because you were part of this too. If you were married and your spouse has passed on, would you stand up? Okay, very good. That takes care of most of the people in here. We're all in this together. This requires work every day. Some of us have been married or engaged to get married. Some of us have been married 50 years. Terry, Kathy, what do you guys have? Put you on the spot here. Are you over 50? Tell me that. No. Okay, all right. Looking for... Nobody hold that against him. That was totally putting him on the spot. But, okay, just wanted to determine who we might have as the longest married couple. Okay, all right. We're not holding... All right, take one more good look at each other. I'll be apologizing for that later. And then have a seat. Have a seat. Today we're going to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 7. It's going to be up on the screen. We're going to do just a few verses in there. Paul is answering specific questions Corinthian believers had for him at the time. This church of Corinth was divisive. They had problems, and they were struggling in their marriages. So this is where we talk about the more things change, the more they've always been that way. And Paul addresses them. So starting in verse 7 today. But first, verse 5, Paul says, marriage is a decision to serve one another. Reading in verse 7 now. Sometimes I wish everyone were single like me. Paul right away is declaring the single life is simpler, okay? It's simpler in many ways, but celibacy is not for everyone any more than marriage is. So the single life that Paul is talking about is not the single life of the TikTok generation of 2023. The single life meant a life of celibacy. God gives this gift of the single life to some, and the gift of married life or marriage to some also. Paul goes on to say that there's benefits in both remaining single and being married. Not everybody has to be married. Verse 8, I do, though, tell the unmarried and the widows that singleness might be best. He further drives this point home to those who are already married, who aren't already married, who are widowed, that staying single is best. Why does he say that? Because marriage is difficult, right? Marriage is joining two messy lives and two messy people together. So picking up at about verse 9 there, but if they can't manage their desires and emotions, they should by all means go ahead and get married. The difficulties of marriage are preferable by far to a sexually tortured life as a single. Okay, so Paul says, however, if you feel a single life of devotion, that's what he means by being single, a single life of devotion to God. If you feel that isn't for you, then get married. You should get married. That's what Paul is saying. And he says, even though joining together two imperfect, messy people will undoubtedly be difficult and bring new stress into your life, it is good and you should do it. Not everybody has to get married. If you have desires that the single life will not satisfy. Okay, verse 10 now, and if you are married, stay married. This is the master's command, not mine. These are not Paul's words. These are the master's commands, as he says. If a wife should leave her husband, she must either remain single or else come back and make things right with him, and a husband has no right to get rid of his wife. So let's break that down just a little bit. If you are married, stay married is what Paul is saying. That doesn't mean stay miserable, stay hating each other, that sort of thing. But Paul reminds us that no matter what God has joined together, here, this church today, what God has joined together, no man, woman, no person should separate. In other words, what I'm saying, and somebody might need to hear this today because I needed to hear it at some point, and maybe you do too. The one God gave you 6 months ago, the one God gave you 50 years ago, is still good, is what Paul is saying. In other words, breaking it down further, the one that you've experienced so much with, that you've had joys with, that you've had sorrow with, that you've seen each other at your best, you've seen each other at your worst, the one you've cried with, the one you welcome new life with, the one you've said goodbye to people with, one that has stood by you during the most difficult time in your life when everybody else walked out of your life, but the one, your spouse, stuck by you, that one is still good, Paul declares. The one that you, hear this, let's go back. The one that you looked across the altar at and exchanged those words actually meant something, and they went a little something like this. Recall your wedding day, guys. From this day forward, for better or for worse, to have and to hold, for richer or poorer, from this day forward, till death do us part. The one God gave you is still good. If they're next to you right now, look at them and just you don't have to say nothing, just look at them and remind yourself that the one God gave you, you can do whatever you want to do, but the one God gave you is still good. Paul drives that point home for us. Moving to verse 15. And by the way, I know, being married almost 13 years myself, I know there's times, I know there's days where you question that, where you don't feel like that is true, or that there is still good in this situation, or you're maybe ready to throw in the towel. Moving to verse 15. On the other hand, and by the way, that was kind of a weird lead-in. I'm not saying it is okay to throw in the towel, but there are situations. Let's address those for just a second here, right? Let's address the elephant in the room. What if there is brokenness? Well, Paul talks about that. If you have an unbelieving spouse and they walk out, or you're holding on desperately, God has called us, here this church, God has called us to make the best of it as peacefully as we can. You never know. Okay, so what Paul is saying here in verse 15 is that a marriage is forever. A marriage is a commitment that you make from the altar, from death till death do us part, that day to 49 and a half years later. But if there is no way forward, if there is no getting on the same page, as Paul says, if there is deep conflict of faith within a marriage, then make the best of it. Okay, let's be real here. There are situations that don't end up working out, and you've tried everything, and there just doesn't seem to be any way forward, and then you walk through that valley, and you continue to move, and you find blessing on the other side. So here, this church, we know this isn't a perfect world, this isn't a perfect life. We are broken people, and God blesses the broken roads that we are all on. So hear that today. If you've had brokenness in your past, Paul moves on in verse 16 and says, the way you handle this, some of you are such wonderful examples of this, right here in this church, the way you handle this might bring your husband not only back, but okay, so maybe that ship has sailed, but you to God, and strengthen your relationship. that you have with the Lord. Make the best of it, handle it peacefully. And you know what? We have a few examples right here in this church, but this almost never happens in this world. When a marriage is over, or whether we're gossiping with our average friends. I know Jessica talked about that a little bit. I used to do that. I had a friend one time tell me just to get a divorce. Now, looking back at that, I just can't believe that that was the advice that he gave me when I came to him in a difficult situation. That was the answer. So that reminds me that we've got to be careful who we're getting our advice from. If it's not a marriage that you look up to, if it's not a situation that you look up to even outside of marriage, I know some of you are listening for different reasons, don't seek advice from them. We want wise counsel. But if you're stuck in a deep conflict that you don't see an end to, or maybe that has already happened and you've moved on, how you handle your situation, even if you are in the deepest of valleys right now, or you come from brokenness, or you are a product of that, how you handle that situation speaks volumes of your faith. And remember, people are watching those situations. People see that you're not busy tearing down your significant other or your former significant other, or maybe you're able to come together and raise children together. We see that, and it's beautiful because God blesses the broken road. We don't all have perfect situations, and I love that Paul addresses that. And moving further here, he says in verse 17, don't be wishing you were someplace else with somebody else. Where you are right now is God's place for you. And remember, as I say these things about our broken road and our situations, our kids, not only other people, but our kids are watching us. They're watching how we handle adversity in life, how we handle ourselves in difficult situations, and certainly how we handle situations in our marriage. They may not look like they're paying attention, but they're paying attention, and they will copy our behavior, good or bad. Verse 17, stop wishing circumstances were different. Stop believing. Thank you, social media. Thank you, Twitter. Thank you, TikTok. Thank you, Facebook. Thank you, Instagram. And thank you, most of all, Snapchat. I hope you can hear the sarcasm in my voice, for telling us, for helping us believe that we are the only ones that are struggling. Social media is everybody's highlight reel, and that's the worst thing that we can do, is go there when we're in a time of struggling. Because you know what you're going to see? You're going to see everybody else's highlight reel and all the things that are going right in their life, and that makes things really difficult. So what we need, what we need in this world, in my opinion, is more people that are willing to get real and be vulnerable and just share some of the mess that they're willing to do. So that's why I'm so thankful. We have another couple that's already shared. Oh, by the way, this is going to be a two-part series, so for the next week we have another couple that has shared. There's just so much power in being real. Okay, moving on to verse 18. Were you Jewish at the time God called you? Well, what does that mean to us? Don't try to remove the evidence. Okay? So I think that is where we can talk about how it applies to us. Don't try and hide your past. Don't sweep it under the rug. Again, this is what we've been talking about this entire message. There is power in your story. There is power in your testimony. There is power in not pretending that everything's always been okay and that it's been a Cinderella story or It's a Wonderful Life or, whatever since you got married. You've been in the honeymoon stage for 15 years. Oh, baloney. Tell me the real stuff. Tell me how you got through loss. Tell me how you got through that time that you were struggling, you were drinking too much. Tell me how that time when you walked in the door and you got fired. You said that you got fired for doing something stupid and your spouse stuck by you. That's the stuff that I want to hear, so then when that happens to me, I can remember that so-and-so one time shared that information with me, and they got through it, and if they get through it, I can get through it too, because what God puts together, He doesn't want any man, woman, or anybody to separate. So we lift each other up by sharing our story and being real. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's a theme here that the fakeness that's out there, not just here, but in this world, through social media, just really, really irks me. And we need some more vulnerability and some more realness, because life is hard even if you're single. And when you bring people together, as Paul says, it's easier to remain single. I go to about to be married to the... It's difficult when you join lives together. Hope I'm not scaring you too. I did have a premarital counseling session yesterday. God's ways are above ours. His timing is above ours. And I didn't even put the connection together that when I was talking to this couple yesterday. And just to see the joy in their eyes and the excitement for the future. And I kind of found myself in the same predicament yesterday, like, talking about a lot of the negative. Don't get lost for 1 second that marriage can't be beautiful. And one of the absolute most amazing things that God has given us. But it takes work. It takes for us, let's just call it 12 years and 6 months. It takes 12 years, 5 months, and 30 days to get where you're at. It all matters. And Jessica and I have shared this with each other. I don't know that I would do any of it over again. But the blessing on the other side of all, not that we didn't have good days. Don't hear that. We had a lot of good days. But why would you go through that again when it's made you the person that you are today? All right, finishing up our scripture because we've got a few more things to cover here. I'm just going to move down to about verse 21. Kelly, I know they're not all numbered here. Under your new master, you're going to experience marvelous freedom you would have never dreamed of. You will experience a delightful enslavement to God that you have never dreamed of. In other words, what we get for our relationship from Jesus Christ, the forgiveness, the new life, carries over into our marriage. And when both people are on the same page, as you heard Eldon and Mary, thank you for that, keeping God in the center. That was probably our biggest problem. We didn't do that. But there's so much beauty in life for all of us to experience, whether you're married, whether you've had brokenness. And by the way, I ain't pointing out anybody. We've all had brokenness in our past. Or you're single, or you're widowed. There's beauty out there for all of us to experience. And Paul finishes up the section here saying, all of you were once held hostage in a sinful society. So please don't, out of old habits, slip back into doing what everybody else tells you to do. It's right there in the middle of the screen, and it should be highlighted. Hear that again. Do not slip back into doing what everybody else is doing. Facing the reality we know. If we take a look around us, if you go to the mall, I know people don't really do that anymore, or you're in a public place, it's not hard to see the couples or maybe the guys gathered on the bench in the mall waiting area that are unhappy, that are just miserable, that are just going through the motions, and the women, I'm a guy so it's easier to reason with the guys, but it's easy to see if you really pay attention to the couples that are not healthy. The world sells us on average, on mediocrity. To have a strong marriage, you need to surround yourself with strong marriages. Another thing that we did not do a good job of. We need to be better about seeking wise counsel. Paul does not sugarcoat this. That life will be more difficult with somebody else. Life will be more difficult when you join together. But what more beautiful than somebody to share the joys of life, to share each moment with, to comfort and hold each other, to encourage each other, to be on the same team. I said that, I remember saying that to Jessica, that after we went through our loss, I'm the only person that saw her cry the way that she cried that night holding our daughter, and nobody else was there. And that moment right there, it clicked for me that this is forever. There's no way that we can turn back now at this point, because we're the only ones that have, and you guys can all relate this, we're the only ones that have seen each other in that vulnerable moment. Nobody else would ever understand. I love how Paul says, deal with the world as sparingly as you can. Stop being swayed by the ways of the world. And another important piece in there, I know you may want to go read this on your own again because there's a lot in there, but this goes outside of marriage too. Stop overcomplicating everything. We have a tendency to do that. Married life, single life, all of it. Paul tells the Corinthians that he's trying to be helpful with this information. I'm trying not to discourage you, as hopefully I'm doing the best that I can in my own flawed way, that I'm not discouraging you guys, but I'm reminding you of how beautiful marriage can be, but how difficult it is, and how it might take, you might feel like you're right in the middle of that right now, but let Jessica and I and Eldon and Mary as a product be an example of you guys. We're still working on it. We are definitely still working on it. We just had an argument that wasn't pretty about, 10 days ago? So it happens. It's a process, but each time you strengthen that bond and eliminate the distractions. I could say this every week because I need the reminder. Put the phone down. Actually care. Take time to be engaged with your spouse. I'm going to save the 4 C's, don't put them up there, for the second marriage sermon, because I want to just go a little bit deeper with you. We got a few minutes left here as we've explored Paul and the Corinthians and him telling them that married life is going to be difficult. I'm on your side, but I'm just letting you know. See, for me and Jessica, and I wish that there would have been somebody in our life that would have helped us prepare for how difficult marriage is going to be. She told me that there was nothing off limits today, as I was not prepared because I didn't watch her video. I didn't know what she was going to talk about. So let's just have a little more vulnerability talk here. But first of all, Eldon and Mary, thank you for your willingness to share. A couple things that I thought was cool from theirs, that they're almost at 50 years. Life is a quick trip. Life is a quick trip. It may not seem like it in the moment, but work at it. Never give up. We should be persistent in our marriage. The world sells the grass is greener. Hey, you don't like what you got going on right now? The grass is greener. And Eldon and Mary, thank you for saying that love grows. The more that the time passes, you feel, and I feel this now, I didn't feel this in the first few years, but you love your spouse more now today, January 22nd, 2023, than I ever have. And hopefully you guys feel that too. And if you're not right now on the same page, there's hope. It's not too late. It's never too late. Trust me, we've been to the bottom, we've seen it, and we've also seen the peak. But let's not forget, when you get to the peak, there's only another peak. The journey never ends. So again, thank you for reminding us to keep an open mind and to back each other up, because we are a team. Jessica and I used to kind of tear at each other in different ways and not encourage each other, but there was no handbook for what marriage was going to be like. I certainly could have used it. I was very unprepared. We were doomed from the beginning. You heard Jessica talk about it. The pastor at the church that she grew up at refused to marry us because of him hearing that we lived together. So, I mean, come on. Are we trying to bring people to Christ and realize that people come from broken situations and there's healing possible? Or are we going to judge them for what they're doing and rub their noses in it? So, for us, we found a pastor that was willing to marry us. He didn't know us. And that was a little seed that was planted after some hurt happened in the church, a little seed of healing planted. And I thank you, Pastor Matt Miller. You're a pastor, so I can say your last name, for what you did in our life. It seemed little at the time, but it turned out to be a big deal. And sometimes the little things become the big things. And I just saw him at a Central Line football game not too long ago and was able to thank him for being that light that we desperately needed, even though it took several years to realize the hurt that he turned back the other direction. So those examples stick with a person, but believe me when I tell you that our 13 years have been really messy. You heard Jessica just kind of talk about that. We should be a statistic, guys. I'm not up here for show to Pastor T has to pretend like he had struggles in his marriage so he can relate with us. This is real. This is real. It has been a struggle. We should be a divorce statistic. I remember that day in the car. I remember that feeling of feeling like you're in a hole and dirt's being spilled on you and there's no way that you're going to get out, because nobody had prepared us for that difficulty. So if nothing else, church, all of us, married or not married, hopefully you haven't, non-married people haven't checked out yet, but there's reason for us to share our story. There's reason for us to be vulnerable, because I look back and see maybe we wouldn't have been ready for it, but that's not for us to judge. But if somebody would have been there for us, that could have saved us some hardship. But God blesses that broken road. And, you know, I think Jessica would share it with me. You know, even though we could have used that and we wish that we would have had that person, all of us can be that person, I wouldn't change a thing, even though some of it was just downright painful. And I know she would say the same thing. But our broken road is what leads to blessing. But man, I wouldn't want to do it over again. So if we can be that person that helps somebody else, because guys, I don't know if everybody is grasping that the way that maybe God has opened my eyes, but there's a lot of couples you don't even know. You would never imagine. You guys seem so strong together. And I remember when Jessica and I used to hear those things, and we'd both kind of think in our different ways, oh, if you only knew. There was times where we pulled into church here. I mean, we aren't knockout, drag-out fighting every morning, but like we'd have an argument right before church, and we'd get out of the vehicle. Yeah, it's happened to other couples too, I can see. But we'd walk right into church like everything's fine. You know, because that's what our society teaches us to do. You can't let them know that you're in a season of difficulty right now. You got to fake it till you make it. But sharing what you've struggled with, again, there's many people out there that are silently suffering. And Jesus calls us to be real with one another. When we said, I do, when you guys said, I do, none of us had any idea where life was going to take us. And again, for many years, we did that the wrong way. We still do that the wrong way. But everything changed for us. And you heard Eldon and Mary say it too. And they kind of talked about maybe a reawakening that has happened in their marriage. And over 50 years, it's probably happened several times. But when we put God at the center of our marriage, He will show us godly people. He will show us people that are in relationships that are stronger than ours. Those are the people that we cling to. Those are the people that we surround ourselves with. Healing. Okay, so just as struggles, as we wrap up here today, just as struggles can come at any time, so can healing. Hear that today, church. Healing begins when we turn to God instead of the world. Healing begins when we begin to be real with each other. When we can get to a place where we can lift each other up and cheer each other on. We don't have to do things together all the time. In fact, too much of a good thing can be bad if we spend too much time together, if we're apart too much. I know spouses that will go hide from, maybe they don't say that, but I know what they're doing. They'll go hide out in the garage from their spouse. They'll escape. They'll spend hours and hours working on things. Quality time is important too. So yeah, don't spend too much time together, but don't be apart. Well, one of the biggest blessings for our marriage recently was, that I can think about, is when I was gone for 2 weeks. I'm not kidding you guys. Try, if you're having a hard time, go across the world for 2 weeks. No, I'm just kidding. But absence can make the heart grow fonder. And it was like Jessica and I were dating again. It was so cool. We were Skyping every day. I couldn't wait to see her when I got home. And I hadn't felt that way probably since we were dating. So I just thought I would share that with you, that it might not be feasible to take a 2-week trip. But sometimes maybe spending too much time around each other through COVID, through working from home, through snow days, we all need our space. We all need our space. Just don't have it become a way of escape. So Paul reminds us to promote peace no matter what. In this place, everywhere that we go, healing begins when we are real with each other. So church, as you've heard people be vulnerable with you today, I ask that maybe some way, somehow, pass that on this week. Share some of your story. We're going to talk about marriage for one more week, because 1 week wasn't enough unless you want to be here until noon. But I know that you're like me and you're getting hungry. So in this place, with our church family, go be the hands and feet of Jesus this week. In your homes, with your spouse, go out and do something together. You know what? Send me a picture of it, if you're cool with it. Wouldn't that be cool to have a collage for week 2 of married couples spending quality time with one another? And hear this, if you're in a valley right now, there was a time when I needed a message like this. and you're walking through what you think is never going to end, there's hope. There's hope out there for you. It's not too late. Just remember to keep God center of everything that you do. So with your children and with your spouse and with your friends and your family and new people that you meet, with the world, go be the hands and feet of Jesus. And remember, if you're cool with it, send me a picture. Let's see if we can get a collage. Maybe the day that you got married. Wouldn't that be cool for week 2? I just had an idea. I just had a thought. So let's close in prayer today and prayer for a prayerful heart that God will show us who we can be real with, or who we can share some of our story with, or what we can just do spending some quality time together. Gracious God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for walking through some scripture that was full of reminders about the married life and the commitment that it is and that we've made to one another. Help us remember the power in being vulnerable and sharing our story with one another. We're thankful, Father, for the ways that you bless our broken roads that we can't see until we get to the other side, and we look back and we go, man, only God could have made a picture this beautiful. Look what he has joined together. And Father, we are so thankful for each and every way that you do that, and you continue to amaze us. But we also lift up those who are maybe in that valley right now and remind them that there is hope today through your Son, Jesus Christ. Thank you for all the things that you do and all the ways that you bless us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Never be afraid. God will